So we're in a series that we begun last week, and we're talking about having healthy homes. And last week, the real focus of our healthy homes is that we want a healthy home is a home that loves. And we want our homes outside of this place to be known as places of love, but we also want this house to be known as a house of love. And that what you experience as a part of this ministry is that you are experiencing a place where you feel loved. And now, sometimes that might look like hard conversations. Sometimes it might look like encouragement. But at the same time, it's always from a place of love. So last week, it was healthy homes are homes of love. This week, our theme is going to be a little bit different. Healthy homes are homes that serve one another. Again, last week, healthy homes are homes that love one another. And this week, healthy homes are homes that serve one another. I was thinking about in our society or in our culture, our community, some jobs that are very service oriented. I know sometimes I will go into a restaurant and I will sit down and somebody comes and says, "What do you want to drink?" And I tell them. And they go and they get it. And they bring it to me. And so I've got a waiter or a waitress that is serving. And so they'll walk back up and they're like, "Sir, it looks like your drink is getting a little bit low. Would you like for me to get you another one?" I'm like, "Well, as a matter of fact, I would. Thank you so very much." And then they come back and they're like, "What would you like to eat today, sir?" I'm like, "Wow, well, thank you. I think I would like a cheeseburger and french fries, please. Thank you." And they are attentive to our every need. As a matter of fact, in restaurants, now I know fast food, you got to do it all yourself, but in restaurants, you get up and you leave. You go get in your car, and they even clean up your mess for you. And that is a life where they'd come in, and I know they get paid for it. I know they get tips and all that kind of stuff, but they are there to do one thing, and that is to serve you, the customer. Man, what a blessing it is to be able to go sit down and have somebody wait on you hand and foot. I was thinking of another one. I don't live the life where I get to enjoy this, but some of you might live the life of having a butler or a maid. To have somebody that would come in and wash things for you and sweep and mop and do your windows. And like, what? There are people that get to live that kind of life, but in order for someone to be able to live that kind of life, there has to be somebody who is giving that kind of life or serving people in that way. And then there's a third group that I was thinking of. And whenever I was thinking about this, I was thinking about my 20-year-old, Gatlin. She is currently in school to be a nurse at Ouachita Baptist University. And before some of y'all are like, "How does a preacher afford sending their kid to Ouachita Baptist?" They don't. They have a daughter that scores a 32 on their ACT and gets $30,000 in scholarship every year. That's how this preacher did it. If not, you're going to a community college. Congratulations. Hallelujah. So she's in school right now, but while she's in school, she is working as a CNA. Is that correct? A CNA. And so CNAs, they get the fun jobs in the hospitals. In other words, they are washing and wiping things that none of us want to have to deal with. They're having to change out beds, and they're having to clean up messes, and they are there to make sure that the nurses can do what they got to do by taking care of some of what we would consider to be the lower things. And I find it interesting that nowadays when you walk into a hospital, there is a sign up that says, "If you abuse one of our medical staff or one of our nurses, that is a felony." Like, are you kidding me? Who's out there abusing nurses? But evidently it's happening, or they wouldn't be putting signs up for it. So Gatlin comes home, and she avoids HIPAA violations, but she lets me know some of the stuff that happened through the night. And none of it sounds like a whole lot of fun. And the times that she's been yelled at and things thrown at her and all that kind of stuff. And so every time she shows up to work, it is to serve people who are in a health need. They are in a place where they are hurting and they're scared and they're broken and they're at a desperate place. And our nurses and our medical community goes into those times and they do what? They serve. And what great examples of servants. One of the things, though, for our public servants is that there is typically some form of payment that's attached to it, right? They're not just out there doing this for free. There may be some, but for the most part, most of the time, whenever there is serving done, there is some kind of a reward attached to it. And so I want to dive into this concept that not only does a healthy home love, but a healthy home serves. Amen? So in order for us to have healthy homes that serve, the first thing that you got to have is the right attitude. Y'all ever been served by somebody that did not have the right attitude? Y'all ever have your food thrown onto your table? Y'all ever had your drink given to you in a not as serving kind of way? And you're like, noted, the tip is just going down, right? And so the first part of being a healthy home that serves is that it has to be tied to the right attitude. Why don't we look in the book of Mark? We're going to flip back and forth. Matter of fact, I'm going to have you turn to Mark. I'm going to read something. Leave your finger there because I'm coming right back to it. Mark chapter 10, verse 45, Jesus says this, "For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many." Jesus sets the standard for us. He says, I, the Son of Man, I didn't show up here for you to serve me. Even though I'm God and I deserve it. He's the only one that can really say that. He said, I didn't show up on this planet for you to serve me. I showed up on this planet to serve you and to give my life for you. So that's the example that Jesus sets. So I ask you this question, what kind of attitude does it take to be a servant in the kingdom? Man, there should be one that just like jumps off the page in your head. The first attitude that you got to have if you're going to serve is you got to have humility. Whew. You got to choose to go low if you're going to have the right attitude to serve. Because if you walk in with the wrong attitude, somebody's going to do something back to you that's going to make you want to pull back your serving of them. And so the first thing that Jesus teaches us about serving is that you got to go low. You got to come in humble. Matter of fact, leave your finger there in Mark because we're coming back here in just a sec. But go to Matthew. Go to Matthew chapter 20, please. Y'all ready to get some scripture? Ready or not, here it comes. Matthew chapter 20. I'm going to give you kind of a little bit of the background, and then we're going to dive into some verse by verse. So there won't be anything up on the screen for just a second while I give you the background of what's happening. Matthew chapter 20. In verse 20, all right, we're in chapter 20, verse 20. Two of Jesus' disciples, James and his brother John. Their mother comes walking up to Jesus, and she's like, hey, in your kingdom, I got a favor to ask. When you're sitting on your throne, would you let one of my boys sit at your right hand? And would you let the other boy sit at your left hand? And so she's asking for some preferential treatment. There's a problem. They're just 2 of 12, right? And so she's coming in, and she misunderstood the assignment. Let's say that. She walks in and she's like, I think that being a part of your kingdom, Jesus, means that my kids are going to get to sit on some thrones. And Jesus is like, hold up. I think I need to bring some clarity to what this really looks like. And so in verse 25, I would like for us to begin to read. In verse 25, but Jesus called them because the other disciples are starting to get mad. As a matter of fact, if you go up to verse 24, it says, and hearing this, the other 10 became indignant. That's like beyond mad. Became indignant with the two brothers. Verse 25, but Jesus called them to himself and said, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles, they lord it over them, and their great men exercise authority over them. Verse 26, he says, it is not so among you, but whoever wishes to become great among you shall be your servant. Whoa. And whoever wishes to be first among you shall be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come, here it is again, did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. Jesus sets the standard of what it looks like to be great in his kingdom. To be great in his kingdom, you got to go low. To have the heart of a servant towards others. He said, if you want to be the greatest in my kingdom, you will become the servant, even the slave of all. Wow. So now let's slip back over to Mark, but in chapter 9 this time. Mark chapter 9, verse 33. We're going to read verses 33 through 35. So Jesus, the disciples are kind of following him around because that's what he said to do, follow me, right? So they're following him, and they've got a conversation going on behind him. And so they get busted. Have you ever been in a whispering conversation and somebody walks up and you're like, what were you talking about? And you're like, I don't want to tell you. That's the scenario that's going on in this moment. In verse 33, it says, and they came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house, he began to question them. Hey, what were you discussing on the way? Verse 34, but they kept silent, for on the way they had discussed with one another which of them was the greatest. They're like having an argument behind Jesus' back. Like, hey, me? I am his favorite. And Peter's like, nope, I think it's me. And they're like, Peter, you're stupid. We know what he's already told you. And John's like, I think I'm his favorite. And then he writes it several times whenever he does Jesus, or John, the disciple whom Jesus loved, right? And so they were arguing over who was the greatest. In verse 34, and sitting down, Jesus called the 12 and said to them, if anyone wants to be first, he shall be last of all and servant of all. This is why it's good to be a Razorback fan. You're welcome. You're welcome. It's in the Word. But serious. A little humor there, but serious. These guys are talking behind Jesus' back about who's the greatest. And Jesus defines it for them. Guys, if you want to be great, you're going to have to go low. You're going to have to serve and lay your life down one for another. That is what it looks like to be great. Matter of fact, if you'll turn to John chapter 13. John 13. This is a powerful moment at the end of Jesus' ministry. I'm going to go deeper into this story here later, but I need to touch on this right now. In John chapter 13, verse 5, this is at the Lord's Supper, right? In John chapter 13, verse 5, it says, then he, being Jesus, then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with a towel which he had girded. All right, pause for a second. It says that Jesus is God in flesh. It says that he pours some water and he begins to wash human feet. God washing our feet. And so just so we fully understand this moment, it says that he is washing whose feet? The disciples' feet. That's in verse 5. Now skip in that chapter to verse 21 so that we can get a timeline of what's happening here. In verse 21 it says, when Jesus had said this, he became troubled in spirit and testified and said, truly, truly, I say to you that one of you will betray me. So Jesus just went and washed his disciples' feet. And then he says, one of you is about to betray me. So who does that tell you about whose feet he was washing? Judas. Matter of fact, I would love to do this real quick. Charles, can you help me out? Charles, would you grab a chair and come up here for me? Sam, would you grab a chair and come up? You smiling at him like he got you. Sam, would you come up here with me? Jacoby, would you grab a chair and come up here with me? I know, right? Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Jacoby. Sam, you just right there. Your dad will be right on the other side of you. Jacoby, right there. It looks great. Yes, please. Please sit down. Please have a seat. All right. So let me just kind of display for you what's going on. Y'all, Jesus is hours away from being turned over to the guards. He is hours away from being beat to death. Hours away. This is what they call his Last Supper. That's the moment that Jesus is in. And I want to pretend that these are three of his disciples up here right now. And this disciple right here is a disciple by the name of Nathaniel. This is a disciple by the name of Peter. And man, I'm not trying to throw shade, but you're going to be Judas. All right? So it tells us in this story that Jesus girds himself up with a towel and he walks up. And it says that he gets down. This is God. It's not just a man, this is God. He gets down face to face. And he looks at Nathaniel. And he says something to the effect, because they would have known this. Hey, Nathaniel, do you remember the first time I met you? You were sitting under a tree. And I came up and I invited you to follow me. And you said nothing good can come out of Nazareth. When you looked at me and you said, I'm not good enough for you to follow, I want to wash your feet. And Peter, you like to run your mouth a lot. Your mama told me so. Now, Peter, here in just a little bit, you're going to act like you don't even know me. And when I need you the most, you're going to bail on me. I want to wash your feet. Judas, you've been stealing out of my treasury. Judas, here in just a little bit, somebody's going to offer you some money. And you're going to lie about me. And you're going to hand me over, and you're going to betray me with a kiss, Judas. Not I, Lord, right? You're going to betray me. And I'm about to go through a whole lot because you're lying about me. I want to wash your feet. Gentlemen, thank y'all. What's your excuse? What's your excuse? You see, we got some people that we have a list of excuses as to why we can't serve. Sometimes they live in your house with you. Whew, Pastor, I didn't come for that. But if Jesus can wash feet like that, we can too, because he modeled it for us. So what was Jesus doing the night? What was Jesus doing hours before he was betrayed to be tormented and killed? He was washing feet. That's what he was doing. So in order for us to serve, we're going to have the right attitude. And the right attitude is an attitude of humility. So let's talk about this applied. What does it look like for us to apply this attitude and live a life that serves? Because y'all, like we started, a healthy house or a healthy home serves. Personal. Let's talk about our personal relationships. A healthy home serves. Husbands to wives. Wives to husbands. Parents to children. Children to parents. Healthy homes are homes that serve one another. And again, this is more about attitude than it is action. Because we can act on it, but our hearts, he says, you obey me with your mouths, but your hearts are far from me. Man, we can walk through it, we can go through the motions, but God's not interested in your actions. He's interested in your heart, because if he gets your heart, then he has your actions. And so real quick, let's talk about some things that inhibit our personal relationships and service. The first one is pride. I don't want to lower myself to serve you. But let's flip that around. I don't like to be served. Because if I'm being served, then one is that I'm having to admit that I couldn't do it on my own. Or number two, now I feel like I kind of owe you. And so that's my pride. Sometimes the person who isn't wanting to serve is not wanting to serve out of pride. And sometimes the person that's being served doesn't want to be served out of the same thing. Pride. So it requires that humility in order for us to serve. Let me throw in another one. If we've been offended by somebody, we're putting up walls. And the thought of letting somebody who has offended us serve us, I don't know that I want them. Not them. And not only that, if somebody has offended me, I'm not too interested in serving them. And so sometimes it's a pride issue. Sometimes it's an offense issue. I don't like how I've been treated, and therefore it is going to affect my ability to serve. And then one of the other things, I had three on here. One of them pride, one of them offense, and the other is that we don't want to be taken advantage of. Sometimes we put ourselves out there and we got hurt, which makes us not want to put ourselves out there anymore. We don't want to become a doormat for somebody. We don't want to serve them and then them just keep taking advantage and keep taking advantage. You ever been in a relationship where it felt like you were doing all the giving and they were doing all the taking? Oh yeah, those are fun ones. And so what we end up doing is we pull back our service because we're like, I'm not a doormat. I'm going to let you treat me like that. Well, you know, there is a place for us to not enable bad behavior. But if we're using Jesus as the example, he didn't put that as a requirement for his serving. He served people that he knew were about to mess up, not ones that had messed up one time ago. He knew what was coming, and he served them anyway. I'll share with y'all a quick example from just yesterday. Yesterday, I got the blessed pleasure of serving. It's more fun being served, I can tell you that. So yesterday morning, I got the blessing of my 7-year-old is going to play football, and flag football. He's young. He's going to play flag football. And they were having a skills evaluation. And many of you are aware, some of you may not be, but Lindsay and I, we both had previous marriages. And so our 7-year-old is actually from her previous marriage, which would make him technically my stepson, but that's my boy, right? That's not my step, that's my son. Like Daniel said one time, the only steps in this house take me upstairs. That's the only steps in this house. And so I got the privilege as a dad to take my son to his eval, and he just knocked the top out of it. So proud of him. And then from that, then I got the privilege to take the family to Shoe Carnival to get school shoes for everybody. I don't like shopping. It's chaotic, and it's the weekend before school starts, so it's even worse. And then from there, I got just the blessing of going from Shoe Carnival to TJ Maxx. And then we got to go from TJ Maxx to Lowe's because we're about to need a new refrigerator. And I mean, it was just a blessed day. And then fast forward the story a little bit, then we go to dinner, or we had dinner at the house. My amazing wife cooked up some enchilada casserole. Thank you for that, Lord. And then I was kind of thinking about, well, we got the week coming up. I need to make sure all the cars are gassed up. So then I get to serve my wife by driving her car at like 8 o'clock at night to go put some gas in it so that she'll have gas all week long. Aww. So after having a whole day of getting to serve, I walk in the door from gassing up my wife's tank to her saying, honey, I've hurt my back and I need you to come rub my back and give my back a massage. And I know some of you guys out there are like, well, absolutely you did, didn't you? Like, yes, I did. But remember what I said about attitude? It had been a whole day of serving, and my serve tank was out. And so I had all of about 10 seconds to get that thing filled back up because she would be able to tell by the way I gave her the massage whether my attitude was in the right place or not. And so I have to get up here and I share these personal examples from you because, like, I got it right, you know, for 2/3 of the day. Man. But then the serve tank was running out, and I want to stand up here and y'all be like, oh man, Pastor Matt, he's the perfect husband. No, my attitude was not the best. Could you tell that my attitude wasn't the best? See? I faked it till I made it. But the truth is, whenever I was living a Boaz life, not having somebody to walk life with me, he brought me a Ruth. And he allowed me the blessing to cover her and to give her a good life. And so when that woman comes up to me and says, honey, my back hurts, it's time to wash some feet, y'all. It don't matter what your day's been. It don't matter if you're frustrated. It's time to wash some feet and to serve. So that's in our house, but what in a community sense? You know, most of us have jobs that we go to during the day, but most of us probably don't walk into our workplace with the attitude of how can I be of service today? It's usually more what is expected of me so I can get this paycheck and get out of here. But did you know that whenever we work, that it's supposed to be a reflection of Christ so that people who are around us are like, wow, Christians are good workers. I want to hire them. If that's the way people who follow the Lord behave at work, then I might want to start following the Lord myself because there's something different about them, right? The attitude is different. So do we work from the heart of being a servant, or are we just working for a wage? Let me throw in this community, church community. This is your church family. You know, I talked about last week, there's a verse that's in a kind of an obscure book called Haggai, where God is speaking correction to his people, and he was like, hey, your houses look nice. What about my house? Your houses are paneled, and they got all the stuff that you need, but my house is laying unattended to. See, what the Lord is saying is like, it's good to take care of your house, but you need to take care of my house too. And so there are some things that are going on around here that could really use you plugging into. We have a really good team system going on here that you could be a part of, and we need you to be a part of. But I sure would love to have more help. What is the saying? Many hands make for light work. Like right now, Ashley and Jacoby, they're going to have about 50 to 60 kids that are going to show up on a Sunday night or a Wednesday night. Do you know that they normally have 3 adults up there with 60 kids? Man, those are bad odds. Hey, in church, if you want to burn them out and make them quit the ministry, that's the way to do it. Y'all, I got to say it. And so you know how you could wash Jacoby's and Ashley's feet? Walk over and say, what do you need from me? I'm here to serve. We got Molly back in the children's ministry right now. And we got some people that are back there consistently. They need some help. They need some more volunteers. Matter of fact, I'll just tell you right now, one of the greatest things that you could do is right outside those glass doors, hanging right, there's something on the wall right there called the, the Connect board. And it's got a whole bunch of QR codes on it, and it's got most of our ministries on it. You want to be a part of something, all you got to do is bring that QR code up, and it's going to take you to a place where you put your name in, and somebody will get a hold of you where you can serve. We've got a security team right now. Most of you don't even know who's on that security team, and we do that on purpose. But they are here to keep you safe. We've also got the worship team. We've got our ushers. We got people all over the place that are serving, and we want you to be a part, because part of being in the kingdom is that you have a heart to serve. So we want to serve in our homes, whether it's with our parents or with our children. It could be with a spouse, whatever it is. But we also have communities that we serve in as well, and we are looking for ways to serve. And I want to go back to a question I asked you whenever I was showing Jesus washing these 3 disciples' feet. And if Jesus had no excuses, then what is our excuse to not serve? You know, sometimes whenever I'm asking somebody to help in children's church, they're like, I've worked with kids all week. I don't want to have to work with kids at church. It may not be worded like that, but that's basically what was said. I can't think of a better place to serve kids than to teach them eternal things. So again, we ask the question, what excuses did Jesus give? So we've got to have the right attitude. We found some areas of application. And so now let's look deeper into the story. This is the last page of notes. This is the command that Jesus gave. John chapter 13. Again, in verse 5, it says that he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with a towel which he had girded. So can I ask this question? Well, I'm not asking you. That was rhetorical. I'm going to tell you anyway. Why is this teaching so hard? Like if I were about to say, hey, we're about to take communion, y'all would be like, oh, that's awesome. I love taking communion. If I were to say, we're about to pull up the planks and we're about to have baptism, y'all would be like, oh, I can't wait. Baptism's one of my favorites. But I start talking about washing each other's feet, Whoa. It just got awkward because feet, oh, Jessica, I see the look on your face. You are scared to death right now. I know how you feel about some feet. You should have seen the look on her face. It brought me so much joy just then. But seriously, why is it that we can take communion and we can do baptism, but you start talking about this, and it's like, whoa, I'll pass. Well, let's look at what Jesus said about it, all right? John chapter 13, verse 6. And so Jesus came to Simon Peter, and he said to him, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? And Jesus answered and said to him, what I do, you do not realize now, but you shall understand hereafter. So in verse 8, Peter says to Jesus, never shall you wash my feet. Wow. Peter, what? So Jesus answers him and says, if I do not wash you, you can have no part with me. Man, talk about changing Peter's attitude in a heartbeat. Jesus said, Peter, this is a necessary part of being my disciple. If you don't allow me to do this, you can't have a part with me. So I guess I would like to say one is that we're in good company because Peter didn't like to do it either. But Jesus had some pretty strong words about what this looks like. So let's skip down to verse 12, I think it is. Chapter 13, verse 12. It says, and so when Jesus had washed their feet and taken his garments and reclined at the table again, he said to them, do you know what I have done to you? Verse 13, he says, you call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for so I am. Verse 14, if I then, the Lord and the teacher, washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I gave you an example that you also should, as I did to you. Communion, baptism, washing of feet. You see, whenever Jesus demonstrated it, it wasn't just for an object lesson. He says, as I have done to you, you should do for one another. Verse 16 and 17. Truly, truly, I say to you, a slave is not greater than his master. Neither is one who is sent greater than the one who sent him. If you know these things, you are blessed if you do them. Y'all, there's a blessing in living a life that serves each other. There's a blessing on your house. There's a blessing in your family. There's a blessing in your marriage. There's a blessing in your relationship with your kids. There's a blessing in your church. There's a blessing in your workplace. He said that if you do this, you will be blessed. But I want to just really quick take you back to verse 14. And he says, if I then, the Lord and the teacher, washed your feet, then you also should wash one another's feet, which is how Jesus set it up. He said, I'm going to be the example for you of what you need to look like yourselves. So what I would like to do is I would like to make this so awkward, but so holy, is that we're going to get a chance to practice what Jesus commanded of us. He commanded it. And so we're going to take some time here at the end of service for us to be able to wash each other's feet.